Today we will discuss a System 4 management model designed for our newly merged companies. So what is a System 4 management? System 4 management is a system-wide approach that uses a 1 through 4 type of classification. The 4 classifications range from authoritative to participative. With the System 4 management, leaders must assess and perform their diagnostics to determine which classification their particular organization falls under. Rensis Likert created this approach in the mid-1900s. The system made it possible to quantify the results of all the work that various theorists had been doing with group dynamics. Likert identified the problems with traditional organizational structures by outlining characteristics of high and low producing organizations. Okay, so now let's take a closer look at the 4 classifications. System 1 is a very authoritative and top-down in its communication and approach towards its employees. Leaders do not interact with their staff unless they're addressing productivity or quality issues. Contributions and excellent work are not met with any type of recognition or rewards. System 1 organizations usually cannot sustain efficiency in today's marketplace due to their total disregard for human capital. For System 2 management, it does contain some authoritative traits, but not to the same degree as System 1. Unlike System 1, System 2 does welcome ideas from its organizational members. Also, leaders in a System 2 management style will make time to positively interact with staff members. The human component is not ignored, however, it's also not a prioritized activity. Okay, next is System 3. The System 3 model is on the other side of the System 4 management continuum. It's not completely participative, but far from the authoritative method that System 1 and 2 had. It can be described as consultative. The leadership team consistently seeks ideas and inputs from its staff members, and it also prioritizes rewards and recognizes staff members. For the System 4 model, it is completely participative. Each organizational member is viewed as a partner and not just an employee. Rewarding and recognizing employees are an important aspect for System 4 organizations. It is not uncommon for these organizations to coordinate big productions to recognize employees for their excellent work. Positive interaction between employees and leadership is deeply ingrained in the culture of System 4 organizations. So here is another breakdown of all 4 of Likert's methods. You can see the differences in each method for trust, motivation, and interaction. Systems 1, the no trust, fear, threats, and punishment, and little interaction, and always distrust between leaders and their employees. To System 2, where there's kind of a a master servant trust. There are rewards and punishment, and little interaction, but cautious interaction. To system 3, substantial but incomplete trust, rewards and punishment and some involvement, which is improvement, moderate interaction and some trust. To system 4, with complete trust, goals based on participation and improvements, and extensive interaction, friendly, high trust. I think it's safe to say that everyone's goal is to work for an organization that emphasizes positive interaction between their managers and employees in a way that System 4 reflects. What is a learning organization? A learning organization is a systematic change program strategically designed to reduce organizational layers. In reducing those layers, the system intends to foster higher levels of involvement, participation, and collaboration. The learning organization emphasizes the pursuit of continuous self-directed learning. So what is self-directed learning? It is a central component of a learning organization. Self-directed learning is a process where employees assume accountability for their learning and training needs. This responsibility is assumed without the direction from an employee's manager. Because it is self-directed, it requires an individual with a high level of initiative, ambition, and drive. A component of this process is for the employee to identify training programs that support their goals within the organization. Typically with an employee creating an assessment and then identifying those training programs. Even though the style of learning is very different from the normal on-the-job training that we think about when it comes to corporate settings, employees engaged in this process are positioned to contribute to a culture that encourages participation, which is a core component of a learning organization. So some common issues or problems that arise by using other systems for organizations is the inability to assess an organization's efficiency based on their classification. How can they determine their efficiency or their classification if they haven't been able to assess that method? Also, the lack of strategic initiatives to plan and manage change. A lot of times organizations tend to be reactive versus proactive, and that's one issue that they will face instead of planning accordingly. Less emphasis on positive interaction between managers and employees. Many organizations still have that top-down mentality where, especially like in the government or in the military, where whoever is the leader, they're responsible and whatever they say goes. And that's just not the direction that organizations are turning to in today's society. Also, the inability to correlate effective teamwork, cross-functional effectiveness, and organizational culture with organizational effectiveness. So some best practices for implementing these changes. Prior to implementing a new system, leaders should examine their current system to identify areas that can be improved. Probably to collaborate with other members of their team is the best way to go. With the merger from the two companies, collaboration between the two is really important for the success of the merger. Leaders will need to utilize the appropriate organizational development tools to ensure their organization falls within an effective classification. There needs to be understanding of what the current classification is in order for them to make improvements to it. They will be able to make changes for the better, especially with the collaboration efforts, and make a more effective classification. The main thing is emphasis on people plus emphasis on results equals managerial effectiveness. That is key. Okay, so some recommendations on how we can implement these changes. Adequate emphasis must be applied on developing, motivating, empowering, and recognizing employees. How can we do those things? By constantly seeking ideas and inputs from staff members. Employees, staff members, they all want to feel like they're part of the team, and they're going to be more proud of their efforts if their suggestions were a part of the thought making or the decision making process. Prioritizing rewards and recognizing staff members. Everybody wants to be recognized for their efforts, and I think that it makes employees work harder because there's an incentive that what they're doing matters, and they're going to be showed that extra recognition. Developing clear policies, setting those guidelines and those expectations so there's no question about what everyone's role is and what is the goal of the organization. Having employees involved in setting those expectations and those goals will make them more likely to meet them because they're part of that creation. And deeply ingraining positive interaction between employees and leadership. That is so important to the success of an organization. Making sure that employees feel that they are a part of the team and that they matter just as much as everyone else is so